The massive Imperial ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its metallic surface reflecting the distant sunlight. Commander Gray stood on the bridge, his tall frame casting a shadow across the holographic display of a small blue planet. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the readings. "Another primitive world for the Empire's glory," he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless similar conquests. The crew around him continued their work, used to this routine of expansion. What caught his attention wasn't the planet itself, but the countless artificial satellites orbiting it. For a primitive world, they had quite a lot of space junk. His second officer, Lieutenant Reed, approached with a datapad. "Sir, we're detecting radio signals. Lots of them. And, sir, they have a base on their moon." Gray's upper eyes widened slightly. A moon base wasn't common for pre-Imperial civilizations. Still, it wasn't enough to concern him. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, and this would be no different. "Send the standard greeting package," he ordered. "Let's see how they respond." The response came faster than expected. The clear, structured signal bearing the simple message, "Welcome to Earth. We are ready for diplomatic contact." Within hours, a meeting was arranged. The humans, as they called themselves, suggested their space station as neutral ground. Gray agreed, more amused than impressed by their attempt at diplomacy. Admiral Ross of the United Earth Defense Force stood waiting in the station's main conference room. She was shorter than Gray expected, like all humans, but carried herself with unmistakable authority. Her uniform was simple but neat, lacking the elaborate decorations common in Imperial military dress. "Welcome to Earth space, Commander Gray," she said, extending her hand in what his cultural database identified as a greeting gesture. "We hope we can establish peaceful relations between our peoples." Gray performed the expected gesture, noting the firm pressure humans used in their greeting. "The Galactic Empire brings civilization and order to all corners of space," he replied, using the standard diplomatic opening. "Your world will benefit greatly from Imperial guidance." The Admiral's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. "We're interested in fair trade agreements and cultural exchange," she said carefully. "Earth is open to joining a larger galactic community as equals." Gray's lower eyes blinked in amusement. "Equals? Your species barely has space travel. The Empire will provide you with proper technology, governance, and protection. In return, we expect complete submission to Imperial authority." The room grew quiet. Admiral Ross straightened her back, her voice taking on a different tone. "Commander, let me be clear. Earth is not interested in submission. We are willing to negotiate fair terms for trade and alliance, but we will not surrender our sovereignty." "You don't understand," Gray said, his tone becoming less diplomatic. "This isn't a negotiation. The Empire doesn't ask. We're informing you of your future. Resistance would be unfortunate." Admiral Ross smiled, but it wasn't the submissive expression Gray expected. "No, Commander. You don't understand. Earth has a long history of dealing with empires. Some tried to conquer us. Some tried to enslave us. None succeeded. You're comparing primitive human conflicts to the might of the Galactic Empire." Gray's voice carried both amusement and warning. "We have conquered species far more advanced than yours." "Then this will be a learning experience for everyone involved," Ross replied calmly. "We choose to stand." The meeting ended shortly after. Back on his ship, Gray prepared the standard invasion protocols. These humans were more stubborn than most, but they would learn. They always did. What he didn't notice was Admiral Ross's last transmission to Earth Command. "Protocol Thermopylae is in effect. They're exactly what we expected. Arrogant, overconfident, and completely unprepared for what humans can do. God help them." As Gray's ship moved to rejoin the Imperial fleet, Earth's military installations worldwide went into silent alert. Weapons that the Empire's scans couldn't detect powered up. Plans developed over decades of preparing for this moment were put into motion. And in offices, homes, and gathering places across Earth, Humans did what they had always done when faced with an overwhelming enemy. They got ready to prove everyone wrong. Commander Gray watched from his command chair as the Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace. 5,000 ships, more than enough to conquer 10 primitive worlds. He had done this hundreds of times before. The humans would see the fleet, panic, and surrender. They always did. "Sir," Lieutenant Reed called out, "the humans are." Broadcasting music. Gray's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. Through the ship's speakers came an old Earth song. "Another one bites the dust." "Ignore their strange behavior," Gray ordered. "Begin the standard attack pattern." The first wave of Imperial fighters launched, expecting to easily destroy Earth's primitive satellites and defense stations. Instead, they flew into a web of nearly invisible carbon fiber nets, their engines tangling and failing. "What is this?" Gray demanded, watching as his first wave became useless chunks of metal floating in space. "Sir," Reed's voice carried alarm. "Nuclear detonations detected." Before Gray could respond, dozens of human satellites exploded, not from damage but by design. The electromagnetic pulses from these carefully planned detonations washed over the Imperial fleet. Ships started losing power, their advanced systems proving surprisingly vulnerable to this primitive warfare. "Impossible," Gray muttered. "They sacrificed their own orbital infrastructure." "Sir, incoming projectiles." The warning came too late. Tungsten rods, hidden inside what appeared to be normal communication satellites, rained down on the Imperial fleet. These simple kinetic weapons, powered by gravity alone, punched through Imperial shields designed to stop energy weapons. Admiral Ross's voice came through the still-working communication systems. "Consider this a demonstration, Commander. Would you like to discuss those trade agreements now?" Gray's pride won over his surprise. "Launch all fighters. Begin planetary bombardment." The remaining Imperial ships moved into position, but the humans weren't done. Their moonbase, which Imperial scans had shown as a simple research station, opened up like a flower. Hundreds of small, stealthy ships emerged, their design completely different from anything the Empire had seen before. "What kind of ships are those?" Reed asked, watching as they approached. They found out quickly. The human vessels, despite their small size, carried weapons that seemed specifically designed to counter Imperial defenses. They moved in strange patterns, ignoring standard combat tactics, making them nearly impossible to predict. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than in any previous engagement," Reed reported, his voice shaking. "Their weapons, they're modified mining tools. They're cutting through our hulls like they're made of paper." Gray watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart by what should have been an easy conquest. The humans weren't fighting like a civilized species. They were fighting like cornered animals, using every dirty trick, every possible advantage. "Fall back," Gray ordered, finally accepting that something had gone terribly wrong. "All ships, emergency retreat." But the humans had planned for this too. Hidden nuclear missiles, launched from underwater bases on Earth, detonated near the fleet's calculated retreat points. The hyperspace disruptions trapped many ships in normal space, leaving them vulnerable to the swarms of human vessels. In his ship's command center, Admiral Ross watched the battle unfold. "Send the message," she ordered. Across all frequencies, in every language the Empire used, Earth broadcast its response. "You assumed we weren't ready because we didn't show our weapons. You thought we were primitive because we didn't follow your rules of war. This was your mistake. We've been preparing for aliens like you for centuries. This is your final warning. Leave Earth space, or learn why humans are the monsters in our own horror stories." As Gray ordered his remaining ships to retreat, he realized something that would later become part of his famous warning. Humans didn't fight to win battles. They fought to end wars. And they did it by making the cost of victory too high for their enemies to pay. "Sir," Reed said quietly, watching the last of their fleet escape, "what do we tell the Imperial command?" Gray stared at the blue planet that had just decimated his fleet. Tell them we found something new, something that doesn't follow the rules. And may the gods help any empire that makes them angry. In the Imperial Central Analysis Chamber, the brightest minds of the Empire gathered to study their recent defeat. The room was dark except for the glow of holographic displays showing battle footage from Earth. Lead analyst Paul watched the recordings for the 100th time, his six-fingered hands trembling as he took notes. Something about these humans disturbed him deeply. They didn't fight like any species the Empire had encountered in its 10,000 years of conquest. "Play the deep space battle again," he ordered. The hologram showed a small human ship deliberately venting its reactor, creating a radioactive cloud that disabled 3 Imperial vessels. The human crew had survived in radiation suits, boarding and capturing the Imperial ships. "They're insane," someone whispered in the darkness. "What species sacrifices their own ship's core?" "That's not insanity," Paul replied, making another note. "That's adaptation. They used our safety protocols against us. Our ships automatically shut down when detecting radiation levels that would kill most species. But humans can survive radiation that would kill most of our soldiers." Commander Gray stood silently in the back of the room. After his defeat at Earth, he had been assigned to this analysis team instead of being executed, a sign of how seriously the Empire took this new threat. "Show the ground battle footage," Gray ordered. The hologram changed to show an Imperial ground invasion of a human military base. The Imperial forces had followed standard protocols, deploying in perfect formation. The humans had responded by flooding their own base, using the water to conduct electricity that disabled Imperial armor, while their soldiers, wearing insulated suits, continued fighting. "They destroy their own infrastructure," Paul observed. "They sacrifice defensive positions. They ignore every rule of warfare we've established. And yet, there's a pattern to their madness." The analysis team watched as more footage played. Humans using simple mirrors to blind Imperial targeting systems. Humans launching EMP weapons that sacrificed their own technology to disable Imperial defenses. Humans introducing computer viruses that turned Imperial automation against itself. "Sir," a junior analyst called out, "we've decoded some of their historical records. They've been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. Their military doctrine is built on thousands of years of constant warfare." Paul nodded slowly. "While we fought orderly wars with rules and protocols, they fought endless chaotic battles against themselves. Every dirty trick, every desperate strategy, every possible way to win. They've tried it all against each other. We're not fighting an army. We're fighting the survivors of countless wars." "There's more," Gray added, stepping forward. "Show them the psychological analysis." New data appeared on the screens. Imperial soldiers were refusing to fight. Some claimed they heard human laughter in empty corridors. Others reported seeing human soldiers survive wounds that should have been fatal. "They'd learned about our legends," Paul explained, his voice tight. "Every species has stories of unstoppable monsters. The humans, they're deliberately mimicking those stories. Imperial soldiers aren't just fighting humans. They're fighting their own nightmares." "The worst part," Gray said, "is their adaptability. Look at this." The display showed captured human weapons. They had taken Imperial technology and modified it in ways that made no sense until they were used in battle. They hadn't just copied the technology. They had improved it, made it more lethal, more efficient. "We gave them access to Imperial tech, thinking they were too primitive to use it properly," Paul summarized. "Instead, they understood it, improved it, and turned it against us in weeks. No species has ever adapted so quickly." As the analysis team watched more footage, a terrible understanding began to dawn. The Empire had spent millennia becoming the perfect civilized fighting force. But humans had spent their history learning to win at any cost. "Recommendations?" Gray asked quietly. Paul looked at his notes, then at the footage of human battles still playing on endless loops. "We need to warn everyone," he said finally, "not just the Empire. Every species needs to know. Humans don't fight to follow rules. They fight to win. And they're very, very good at it. In the darkness of the analysis chamber, the Empire's greatest minds finally understood true fear. The Imperial High Command received the emergency transmission from their frontline base in the Orion sector. The message was short. They're coming. Hours later, the human fleet appeared. But these weren't the simple ships they'd faced before. These vessels were hybrids. Imperial technology merged with human innovation in ways that should have been impossible. Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of the Earth's new flagship, the Revenge. The ship had been built using captured Imperial tech, but its design was purely human. Where Imperial ships were elegant and standardized, this was a monster of war. All ships, battle formations, she ordered. Show them what humanity has learned. The Imperial defenders watched in horror as the human fleet split into smaller groups. Each group used different tactics, different weapons, making it impossible to form an effective defense against all of them at once. How are they powering those weapons? The Imperial base commander demanded, watching as human ships fired energy weapons that shouldn't have been possible with their level of technology. The answer came from his chief engineer. They've modified our power cores. They're running them past safety limits. By all our calculations, those ships should explode, but they're holding together. What the Empire didn't understand was that humans had centuries of experience pushing machines beyond their limits. Where Imperial engineers built to specifications, human engineers built to extremes. The Revenge led the first assault. Its weapons were Imperial designs rebuilt by humans who'd spent centuries thinking about ways to kill each other. Every safety protocol had been removed. Every power limitation had been bypassed. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't safe, but it was lethal. Target their main reactor, Admiral Ross commanded. Show them what happens when humans improve their technology. The Revenge's main gun fired. It was an Imperial planet cracker cannon, but humans had modified it. Where the original design took an hour to charge, humans had rebuilt it to fire every 5 minutes. The cost was enormous. Each shot burned out parts of the weapon, requiring constant repairs. But humans had learned long ago that a weapon didn't need to last forever. It just needed to last long enough. The Imperial base's shields, designed to withstand standard planet cracker shots, shattered under the overcharged blast. The base's reactor followed moments later. Send the message, Ross ordered. Every Imperial commander in the sector received the same transmission. Your technology is now ours. But unlike you, we're willing to break it to make it better. Surrender, or face weapons you designed, but never dared to use. The human fleet pressed their advantage. Ships that Imperial scanners identified as damaged or powerless suddenly came to life, revealing that humans had learned to fake signal readings. Vessels that seemed destroyed exploded into clouds of deadly shrapnel, showing that humans had turned their own deaths into weapons. In the Imperial High Command Center, Gray watched the reports come in. They're not just using our technology, he realized. They're showing us everything we were afraid to do with it. The human advance continued. Imperial troops found themselves facing weapons they recognized but couldn't defend against because humans had removed all the safety features. Each captured Imperial base provided humans with more technology to modify and improve. You don't understand. An Imperial commander screamed over an open channel. That's not how those weapons work. You can't do that with our technology. Admiral Ross's reply was simple. We just did. As the battle ended, Ross recorded a message for Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. The Empire's greatest weakness is their belief in rules and limitations. They built their weapons with safety in mind. We built ours to win. The Empire had given humanity access to advanced technology, expecting them to take generations to understand it. Instead, humans had taken it apart, rebuilt it, and improved it in months. They hadn't just learned to use Imperial technology. They'd learned to use it in ways the Empire had never imagined. The war's turning point wasn't just about humans mastering Imperial technology. It was about humans showing the galaxy that no technology was as dangerous as the species that would break every rule to win. The Imperial War Room had never been so quiet. 12 fleet admirals sat around the massive holographic table, watching as another red dot, representing an Imperial fleet, vanished from the display. "That's the third fleet this week," Admiral First Class Mark announced, his voice heavy. "The humans aren't just winning battles anymore. They're hunting our ships." The tactical display told a terrifying story. Human forces had split into hundreds of small groups, each operating independently. They weren't following any pattern the Empire could predict. Some attacked military targets. Others raided supply lines. A few simply waited in ambush near Imperial patrol routes. "Report from the front lines," a young officer announced, entering the room. The 7th Fleet tried to counterattack. The humans. He paused, checking his notes. The humans released something into their life support systems, some kind of microscopic organism. "A biological weapon?" Mark asked, alarmed. "No, sir. It's eating the metal. Their ships are falling apart from the inside. The humans call it rust. They've weaponized a natural process from their planet." Commander Gray, recently promoted for his insights into human behavior, stepped forward. "You see, this is what makes them different. We think in terms of weapons. They think in terms of everything that could possibly be a weapon." The display updated again. Another red dot vanished. "The 3rd Fleet reports humans using something called advertising," another officer reported. "They're broadcasting images and messages designed to create desire and discontent among our troops. Desertion rates are rising." Gray nodded grimly. "They've studied our species. They know our psychological weaknesses, and they're using our own communication networks to exploit them." The room fell silent as they watched human ships appear and disappear across the galaxy. Imperial sensors couldn't track them reliably anymore. The humans had learned to mask their signatures in ways that seemed impossible. "New report from the Centauri sector," someone called out. "Humans have. Sir, they've convinced an entire Imperial battle group to surrender." "Surrender?" Mark's voice cracked. "Imperial forces don't surrender. These did. The humans offered them food from Earth, something called pizza and ice cream. They said anyone who surrendered would be treated well, and the officer checked his report again, introduced to something called weekend breaks and vacation time." Gray almost laughed. "They're not just defeating us militarily. They're making our own troops want to join them." The tactical display shifted again, showing a time-lapse of human expansion over the past month. They weren't trying to hold territory like the Empire expected. Instead, they struck from hidden bases, disappeared, then appeared somewhere else entirely. "Sir," a communications officer burst into the room. "We've intercepted a human transmission. It's a recipe book. They're teaching our captured troops how to make human foods." Mark slammed his fist on the table. "Stop talking about food. This is war." "No," Gray said quietly. "This is humanity. They don't just defeat their enemies. They convert them. Every Imperial soldier who tastes their food, who experiences their culture, who learns their ways. They're not just losing the will to fight. They're starting to think humans might be right." The display updated one final time. A massive human fleet had appeared near the Empire's central worlds, but instead of attacking, they were broadcasting on all frequencies. Admiral Ross's voice filled the room. "You've seen what we can do. You've lost fleets, territories, and now the loyalty of your own troops. But we're not like you. We don't want to rule an empire. We just want to be left alone. So here's the deal. Recognize Earth's independence and the independence of any world that wants to be free, and we'll stop. Continue fighting, and we'll show you why humans write horror stories about ourselves." In the silent war room, the Empire's greatest leaders finally understood their mistake. They hadn't just started a war with a primitive species. They had awakened something that turned everything: technology, nature, culture, even peace, into a weapon. Begin peace negotiations, Mark ordered finally. And someone find out what this pizza thing is. If we're surrendering, we might as well know why. The Imperial High Council gathered for what many suspected would be their last meeting. The Grand Chamber, once a symbol of unquestionable power, now felt like a tomb. 12 ancient counselors sat around a table that had seen 10,000 years of decisions. We cannot surrender to primitives, High Counselor Rex declared, his aged voice shaking with anger. We are the Empire. We have ruled the galaxy since before their ancestors learned to make fire. Commander Gray stood before them, his uniform showing signs of recent battle. With all respect, Counselor, they're not primitive anymore. They've taken our technology, and... He paused, searching for the right words. They've made it sing. The holographic display showed the current state of the war. Human forces had penetrated deep into Imperial space, not through brute force, but through something far more dangerous. Innovation. We've gathered every remaining ship, Admiral Mark reported. One final fleet, the largest in Imperial history, 300,000 vessels. And what makes you think quantity will work when quality has failed? Gray asked quietly. Before anyone could answer, the chamber's emergency alarms activated. On the main display, a single human ship appeared in orbit above the Imperial capital. It was the Revenge, Admiral Ross's flagship. This is your final warning. Ross's voice filled the chamber. Surrender, or witness what humans can really do when pushed too far. High Counselor Rex stood, his ceremonial robes flowing. Launch the fleet. Show these upstart primitives the true might of the Empire. The massive Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the single human vessel. 300,000 ships against one. The counselors watched, expecting a quick end to this insult. Instead, Admiral Ross's voice came again. Thank you for gathering your ships in one place. It made this much easier. Suddenly, the Revenge disappeared. Not destroyed, simply vanished. In its place, thousands of small objects appeared. Nuclear devices, Gray whispered, recognizing them. Old-style fusion bombs. Wrapped in is that Imperial shield technology. The bombs detonated simultaneously. The Imperial shields, designed to protect from energy weapons, actually contained and reflected the explosions inward. Each explosion was magnified 100-fold. The Imperial fleet didn't just die, it was erased. How? Rex demanded, watching his mighty fleet vanish in moments. How did they know our shield technology would? Because they tested it, Gray answered. That's what humans do. They experiment. They try things we'd never consider. They look at our most advanced technology and ask what-if questions like children. New alarms sounded. Human ships were appearing everywhere in Imperial space. Not attacking, just watching, waiting. They're in our communications networks, an officer reported frantically. They're broadcasting to every Imperial world at once. Admiral Ross's face appeared on every screen in the chamber. Your fleet is gone. Your defenses are obsolete. Your own people are starting to question why they fear us more than you. But we're not here to destroy you. We're here to change you. The counselors watched in horror as she continued. Every Imperial world is receiving our complete technological database. Not just the weapons. Everything. Medical technology that your leaders kept for themselves. Educational systems that were reserved for the elite. Entertainment, art, music, and yes, even our recipes. You're giving away Imperial secrets. Rex shouted uselessly at the screen. Ross smiled. No, we're giving away human secrets. Because unlike you, we believe knowledge should be free. Your empire was built on control. Ours is built on chaos, creativity, and choice. Gray stepped forward. Counselors, we must surrender. Not because they've beaten us militarily, but because they've shown our people a better way to live. The council chamber fell silent as the truth sank in. The Empire hadn't just lost a war. They'd lost the very thing that made them an empire, the belief that their way was the only way. "Very well," Rex said finally, his voice ancient and tired. "Send the surrender signal." And he looked at the recipes already spreading through the Imperial networks. "Order some of this pizza thing. I want to know what could make Imperial soldiers betray 10,000 years of tradition." The Empire had learned the hardest lesson possible. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it's an idea. And humans had plenty of those. Official Imperial document. Classification. Mandatory reading. Author: Former Commander Gray. Status: required study for all spacefaring species. War and irrigarding human species. I, Former Commander Gray of the fallen Galactic Empire, hereby submit this final report and warning about the species known as humans. This document is to be shared with all spacefaring civilizations to prevent future conflicts. To those who find humans, run. If you cannot run, surrender. If you cannot surrender, pray. My first encounter with humans led me to believe they were primitive. This was my first mistake. Humans are not primitive. They are different. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. They do not win like us. Key observations about humans. 1. They turn everything into a weapon. During our war, humans weaponized their food to attract our soldiers, their entertainment to spread their ideas, and even their defeats to learn our weaknesses. Nothing is ever wasted. 2. They break rules by default. The Empire spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. Humans spent their history breaking every rule of war. When we gave them technology with safety limits, they removed them. When we showed them proper combat formations, they ignored them. 3. They adapt instantly. Most species take generations to understand new technology. Humans take weeks. They don't try to understand how things should work. They experiment with how things could work. 4. They are psychologically unique. Imperial psychological warfare failed because humans already knew every possible horror. They write stories about monsters, then try to become those monsters when threatened. Personal account from the final battle. I watched as a single human ship destroy our fleet of 300,000 vessels. They didn't win through superior technology or numbers. They won because they asked questions we never thought to ask. What happens if we combine nuclear explosions with shield technology designed to contain energy? The answer: destroy our fleet in seconds. Testimony from Imperial soldiers. They offered us something called weekends and pizza. Now I understand why my unit deserted. Former Imperial captain. I saw a human ship vent its reactor core just to create a radiation cloud. It wore protective suits and captured 3 of our disabled ships. Who thinks like that? Imperial navigation officer. They don't just defeat you. They make you question everything you believe in. Imperial High Commander. Critical warnings. 1. Never assume humans are showing their full capability. They deliberately appear weaker than they are. 2. Do not try to understand human logic. They take pride in being illogical. 3. Never give humans access to your technology. They will improve it in ways that will terrify you. 4. Do not underestimate their primitive technology. They will combine it with advanced technology in ways that bypass all safety systems. 5. Most importantly, never threaten Earth or human colonies. They will not stop until they have completely transformed your civilization. Final notes. The Empire didn't just lose a war. We lost our understanding of the universe. We thought we knew the rules of civilization, of warfare, of technology. Humans showed us that rules are just suggestions, and suggestions can be ignored. They defeated our military, but that wasn't enough for them. They changed our culture. They freed our slaves. They gave our technology to everyone. They turned our ordered empire into a chaotic federation of free worlds. And the most terrifying part, they did it all while offering peace. Every victory was followed by an offer to stop. Every advance came with a chance to surrender. They didn't want to destroy us. They wanted to change us. Now our children eat their food, watch their entertainment, and dream of visiting Earth. The Empire as we knew it is gone, replaced by something more chaotic, but also more free. Remember, if you find humans, you're not discovering a primitive species. You're meeting the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, creatures who have turned chaos into an art form and warfare into a science. May this warning save you from our fate. End document.